Hello everybody, this is Jason Heires. This is My Essential Albums Volume 12. And today we're going to talk about a Pink Floyd album. It's called Meddle. Here is the album cover. Alright, so let me tell you a little bit about this album. This album is the direct predecessor of Pink Floyd's biggest album, Dark Side of the Moon. This album was recorded before Dark Side of the Moon. It was recorded in 1972, I believe, is when it was released officially. And this is probably the sleeper album in the catalog that is one of their best albums that doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But let's go into some history about Pink Floyd. So Pink Floyd is kind of a weird band, and I don't know how many of you realize this, but originally Pink Floyd had a different singer and guitar player who was their main songwriter and their main singer, was the main creative force of the band, and his name was Syd Barrett. Now, Syd Barrett was a really eccentric and very talented guy. If you want to hear Syd Barrett at his best, listen to the very first Pink Floyd album called Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and that's really Syd Barrett being Syd Barrett. Unfortunately, though, Syd Barrett really got into taking acid and took a lot of acid. So much acid that eventually it affected his brain, and he kind of basically became crazy. Which is really unfortunate because, like I said again, he was very talented. Now, there's a lot of Pink Floyd songs that come along later that are written with Syd Barrett in mind, like Wish You Were Here, Shine On You, Crazy Diamond, and some other ones. So, you know, there definitely was kind of a shadow of Syd Barrett. But I guess the point that I want to get for in terms of for this album is they lost their primary songwriter, but they still continued on as a band. But there was a while there where they really didn't know what exactly they were doing in terms of writing albums and songs and things like that. They were, you know, I mean, they lost their primary songwriter. And they released some stuff, and it's pretty uneven. So there's a period there with some albums that are like Atom Heart Mother and Saucer Full of Secrets, and they did a soundtrack for a film called More, and or maybe I'm thinking of Obscured by Clouds, but anyway, there's some stuff in there that is not up to what you would consider to be a Pink Floyd level of quality. Now, this is the first album where they really find their legs again after the departure of Syd Barrett. And we're going to talk about this album. This album starts off with One of These Days, which is a classic Pink Floyd song. It has a lot of slide guitar in it. It has a lot of things going on. And it's just, you know, there's only one lyrical line in the whole song, which is One of These Days I'm going to cut you into tiny pieces. But it's a very powerful instrumental, and it moves through. Pillow of Winds is the second song, and it's okay. It's, you know, it's fun. One of the first real classic songs of this album, and one that I almost was going to do a demonstration on, but I decided to skip it this time around, is Fearless. Now, Fearless is one of the best Pink Floyd songs that, if you're not a deep fan of Pink Floyd, that you've never heard. But you really need to check Fearless out. It's a great, great song. It's recorded in this really cool open tuning that is usually primarily used to play slide guitar, but he does it all through this open tuning that is a much better kind of sound. And that was what I was going to demonstrate. I was thinking about doing a demonstration of how the open tuning works and what it sounds like, but I might save that for a different time. But Fearless is great. Now, there's a couple of weird songs on this album, and that really don't fit in anywhere with the rest of Pink Floyd's catalog. There's Saint-Tropez, which I used to make a joke that I'd play Saint-Tropez and ask people what the band was, and nobody'd know because it's so not a Pink Floyd song. and Seamus, which is basically kind of a goofy blues song with the dog howling in the background. Now they do something similar to this called Mademoiselle Knobs in the Live at Pompeii video, if you've ever seen that, where they have the dog howl along to the music. But it's weird. It's kind of a throwaway track, but it's interesting. However, it's when we get into side B that is where this album really takes off and becomes really, really interesting. And side B is just one song, and it's called Echoes. And Echoes is 22 minutes long. It's a super long song, and it is just a masterpiece. Echoes is the best individual thing that Pink Floyd ever did. So if you've never heard Echoes, you really, really need to listen to Echoes. It moves through so many things. It's got great lyrics. It's got great music. It does all this stuff. It's got these great grooving parts. It's got this, it's just Pink Floyd at their absolute best. And it was with the recording of Echoes and the finding their groove for Echoes that they really discovered what they could do. And that's what translated over to Dark Side and made Dark Side such a great album. So if it wasn't for Echoes and the discovery of what they could do for Echoes, what they ended up doing for Dark Side probably wouldn't have happened. So this was really the beginning of the epic period for Pink Floyd. So this album started it all off. This was the predecessor to the golden age of Pink Floyd. Now, unfortunately the band had creative differences and things happened and everybody moved on, and Roger Waters kind of ended up being in opposition to the rest of the band. And, they didn't last as long as they could have, but for that moment where everybody was together and they were all working together and they were all making good music together, it was a really good time for them. So I strongly recommend that you give Meddle a chance. There is one more thing I want to do because it's kind of fun. So this is before we had the internet, and somebody said that they were going to record Give Me a Copy of Meddle, my good friend Cyprian Alexander. And at first I thought it was M-E-T-A-L, like metal. And then later on I thought, well, maybe it's M-E-D-A-L, like a medal that you wear around the chest. But instead I found out that it was meddle, M-E-D-D-L-E, like meddling in someone else's affairs. And I just thought that was kind of fun, because at the time I didn't have any way of really looking it up because this was pre-internet. And so I just like to share that story just to show how old I am, I guess. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. Have a great one, and I will talk to you later. Bye.